Hello, America. This is a video for American citizens to watch. My name is Anthony Wall, and I'm here to speak about the insurrection slash S upon America since pounding drums, and how they have. This is also theory, but it is also theory science, and it is to, for example, preemptively take that name because people hear what is wrong and counter as per the method originally since founding keeps people occupying offensively. Each individual or grouped truth being tried to be used as extended revelations, but rather than allow people individually or grouped their voice honestly, like in other words, they're all trying to say when they are honest people, trying to be honest, is that how the species science is not being followed. How being entertained are physical delusions juxtaposed with criminally foreign influence premises treatments, sequence treatments, qualities of fact treatment nature, aspects of fact treatment nature. Many Americans want this said and wanted it said, needed it said for themselves and to themselves. This, which our founding parents were. Of course, the insurrection was bad, and people do not have the obligation to condemn that verbally. They were not, and they didn't have a television in front of their face. That was another person's job to get on a microphone. You guys don't have anybody who can get on that microphone, do anything but instigate what worse, and then defend that. Increasingly incapable of defending the quality of fact treatment nature, increasingly incapable of being the quality of fact treatment nature necessary to counter natures of necessary to counter juxtaposed natures of criminal insidiousness, juxtaposed natures of wrongdoers, juxtaposed natures of their motivations and uses by them. So bad because even worse has the state of motivations, nature's needs, interests that everyone blames and perceives. That was grown. Not one has known. Not even them. They only understand through needs to hide life aggressions. They only understand through needs to hide their own actually recorded natures. Self-valuing, for example, how criminal insidiousness as countries A through Z was criminally legalized. Forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded, only let realized, fathomed, shocked, and awe is what the Native Americans were trying to tell the colonists they were. And so everyone, if they had stood together, but they couldn't stand together. Why? Because entrenched was that system. Not just by the colonists, not just by England, not just by the colonies associated with the southern states and slavery, north and south. Only the people behind theories with the law and collusion, still fabricating audio and video, still wire crimes with the quote fake news, unquote. That is recorded. When they said many times the president used no evidences, they keep forcing to start over. He's trying to protract short words that are not exploiting exceptions. Those people with the 9/11 Commission know that many countries are here and there shared, and they're not supposed to speak about it, obviously, or they shouldn't, because they shouldn't be speaking in the first place. This method has them since they were kids, a certain kind of victim predator. Everyone tries to speak for mental health only as styles to speak for other people, speaking for them, relying on other people's minds. These people are in the background fabricating things into databases because they are kept with their family members, with everyone's family members, people that live next to them, to keep everyone either fighting with each other or ignoring things while offensive evidence perception, including fact-keeping nature-oriented predicate acts of being and having been self-valued roles with them, those illusions, wrongdoing increasingly since founding. All formal, informal inclusion, blaming other things other than themselves, where and how nature keeps demonstrating that. The only reason the countries can't step out of this because they're self-valuing each other in the same trap, sickly distinctly. They're still self-valuing themselves, having valued criminally foreign influenced sciences, specifically designed measuring and maintaining how the phenomenon of modern nations A through Z were in our pseudo sophistications as archetypal criminal enterprises in conjunction, used remotely by a hyper archetypal criminal enterprise, more practical, more probable, and demonstrable for its method, relevant to the value of that which was actually discernible simultaneously with the laws of that were in place with the colonies and as the early states, what they had been roles with sustained not to speak about the hurt or to point out a victim, a predator. We're looking for the invisible, but still discernible. Simultaneously, we're going to stay with that because we're going to be dealing with it simultaneously that way, and that's what we're doing when we're speaking. And for example, the subject, predicates. There are two invisible identities of volume, two distinct identities of relationship to themselves, also non-distinctly. And that is in demonstration of that value, that sequence, that hyper simultaneous nature, which that is only a portion of, as we will discern. So each must learn, as ancients had, because it had been led by the hyper simultaneous, the identity of what is that identity has a scientific value, knowing that and how its identity of relationship to itself is the cause of evolution's fruits and gifts here, or them forced from here in demonstration of it. See, exceptions and exceptions where nature was made a way to make positive value nature progressions, specifically to have fact-keeping nature rolls with that, defend without realizing the criminal and sensationalist natures of positive treatments and of negative treatments and of identity treatments simultaneously. And the method knew that nature would continue to demonstrate that the campus revealed through the entire species working together. Because we were on the same page before criminal foreign influences took over the nature of science. The ancients couldn't fathom that we would forget how they come to figure out how to cause evolution's fruits and gifts and means out of nowhere, including and especially regarding how we are fact-keeping nature, where this counts. So we have all the evidences recorded needed. We have nations that are pointing nuclear weapons at each other, wasting their time with technologies, being able to go to space, things like that, from a base still tactically denatured and having been involved with slavery and torture, including that of our founding parents and of those of the other countries too, including the ones involved with those sick methods. Don't forget, slavery was. If you've been following my videos, you cannot. If you want to make proper quality of fact, cheap nature necessary to counter the natures of bound, sickly, distinctly through other motivations, natures of criminal insidiousness, nature associated with slavery. You cannot leave out because of the method by torture that is additional to that. The method that is additional to that, the breaching method, a predicate acts delivery system method, if you will, a hyper predicate acts delivery system method. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a police force, I'm not a criminal. The lawyers originally still too, where our inclusion with the interbranch originally instilled, fabricating audio and video, wire crime roles with the news media, all victim predators. But if you refer to them as victims, they offensively are being and having been coached by the interbranch, by the foreign and interbranch themselves differentially, criminally foreign influenced increasingly since they were kids. Everyone had replaced, for example, what our founders left us to speak, and everyone had it and has it increasingly replaced. And through motivations, nature's needs, interests, where everyone's measuring ourselves, exploiting and valuing that, having been exploited more and more. In other words, there's a science, there's a means to discern what we are supposed to say and relevant to questions. What caused slavery? A breaching method. Any age can understand that. Any age can understand all the ways that recorded, confessed, demonstrated consciously to each location, area, and state. Overt criminal enterprises, private ones, that insidiousness with everyone, and the interbranch and private tied to them. Recorded consciously, demonstrate, confess, record personally how themselves and the ages of their family members and people associated with them, with conversations, uses of their own names, other people's names, how they are criminally foreign influence. The same people pretending little kids can't understand complicated things like that. They just need the words. They can't accept those words there or anywhere because everyone's going to say, oh, well, if that's criminal insidiousness, that's not right. That's criminal insidiousness here. That's, you know what I mean? A criminal insidiousness nature, like a wrongdoer, is going to make positive treatments. He's going to use truths for lies. And this thing preemptively shows little kids that he showed little kids how they have to hide lies for their parents. How they have to have communications with other kids because their parents and other kids, people associated with in the system, they've been slandering people into databases. Now they also keep communication demonstration because they have standard all the time. The intelligence community has to have people to get information from all the time. I'm not saying it's ever been legitimate, but that's one of the things that is common sense. So you see this guy, there was a guy, MSNBC, Fox News, and CNN presented videos of an attack on the insurrection. They have framed it, also with lawyers of theirs, also with retired and standing interbranch. So, and exception nature tied to the military, also involved with switching names, forging names. I don't know this Eric Oliveri, who also one time tried, they made like quick exceptions. They tried to make exceptions, probably made up ones too, because these are also people that completely made up fake things. Intercampuses and online, they have the interbranch criminally foreign influence as victims. But we have to deal how victim predators because they've been coaching people online to roles with predicate acts they have in cases and had in cases and had with people that just came before the courts or whatever like that, people that had interactions with the police, where they've been fabricating audio or video to exploit where and how they give them the benefit of the doubt in cases, but they're not supposed to be lying and they're recorded themselves. But that's just standardized. So they have methods of pretending not to realize, like pretending things are politically oriented. So they are in collusion, like for example, with town offices, Weathersfield town offices across the states. In other words, with a whole bunch of things. Criminal justice involved with all kinds of foreign and domestic collusion. A whole bunch of countries share kids here and there. They're involved with psychiatry, psychology, and ones with badges and guns. And investigators, people where they have stayed relationships, even their acting coaches. Involve people when they use the words on television, like addiction. They're referring to database relationships that are also shared by the military, involve identity theft, fraud, slanders, For example, that method, that breaching method, one of the things it was commonly against all colonists, Native Americans, and everyone now as Americans, Native Americans, everyone, immigrants, people associated with border treatments. This measures the breaching method measured and maintained without anyone discerning. That was sophistication here since before our founding parents were born. It measured and maintained effectively, unchallenged, other told than our founding parents left us to tell about how they could tell no lies. They wanted to tell the Constitution unabridged. See, we have people pretending that we have courts that would take things before a jury and pretend that's the difference of America, where and how they have time treatments used simultaneously, too fast, too slow. And, AB's logic treatments with that, leaving out exception nature, where and how they've been planting evidences and fake exceptions, specifically consciously, to bring things before courts that forge names, switch names with them, fabricate audio and video to replace actually recorded audio and video, as collusion with their own patients and criminals of the worst natures, because they are a certain type of victim predator since they were kids, and collusion also with uses of the overt criminal enterprises and the private ones. And then each age of them kept needing to hide the same lies together, the same uses of corners of streets for fact treatment nature-oriented predicate acts, identity theft, fraud, slander, specifically to keep how nature has a conjunction as three natures, as its nature as volume, to the extent we could discern, as it's that volume's identity of relationship to itself, as the extent we can discern, and as the only increasing value of that, as we can discern. Increasingly, it is the only increasing value. Vaccines, I teach you things but long. So people were shot and killed at what they framed the insurrection. Offensively, they've been framing this with passions and emotions pretended. Passion and emotions were in our biohuman function that requires use by the simultaneous, which requires use by seemingly unconnected subjects. It's only seemingly so, since appreciation for the identity the sciences share, for example, as that identity of hyper-simultaneous. For example, to discern that differently, not just as what we understand and know, as three bound identities of volume, being individual, being grouped, and being species, and where how all that is in demonstration of the invisible, but still discernible, and having been a demonstration to us. The human volume science, not theory. The human volume relativity, not theory. So they have theory of relativity. They have theory of volume theory, offensively affront to the short words of the species inherited. Science is abridged, tactically, criminally re-engineered, self-valued roles with that, not realizing but realizing to extent this method /S knew that everyone was going to do that, be the /S part of its method. It caused the negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures between countries. That's what made countries A through Z as natures that can't defend themselves, and us, and we can't defend ourselves and afford a quality of fact treatment nature and be a quality of fact treatment nature here or there, capable of countering the real causes of negative value of nature progressions, acts, and natures, like criminal insidiousness at all locations, criminal insidiousness natures of positive and negative treatments with passions and emotions, no. Offensively affront to what is the quality of fact treatment nature necessary for example, to show how there was a guy with horns and weapon, and there was others on another front involved with, even especially if that guy's an undercover police officer for him, with that, when those guys with the guns for that, because they have that. In other words, they have these roles with this. In other words, they have sick people that put crimes against kids, including young adults, where they've been, because of what they've been doing too since the youngest grades, and how they mix the kids from the private schools and the public schools, and sometimes off the record, specifically for the fact-cheating nature, hearsay allocations where courts have been criminally making things up and pretending to figure things out legitimately, but they've been just like with witch trials. When people make opinions about witch trials, you don't bring up witch trials and leave out what is simultaneous, which is slavery. Not because, not, I'm not, in other words, that those were the kind of laws. That was the kind of thing attached to the sense and sensibilities of Jane Austen's phrase of the people, A through Z. The reason people have the sense and sensibilities now, where physical, all that, the reason there are positive reasons why people need to hold on to physical culture, and there are reasons where they need to stop putting using it as physical delusions, where it's about this human volume science culture, invisible but still discernible, and they're doing them both opposite. Everyone values the human volume and an identity of negative value nature progression. Everyone only heard criminal and citizens' natures of positive treatments and negative treatments and collusion regarding the most critical questions needed to be asked and or just straight told before even someone needs to ask them about that slavery method against everyone sickly distinctly, including against our founding parents, who said they wanted us to have them tell no lies. See Marbury versus Madison. See the Constitution unabridged. That's what they wanted to say. Get the Constitution unabridged, and the fact-cheating nature predators playing games with time, and forcing offensively quality of fact-cheating nature. In other words, collusion and breaching screen roles with it, forcing qualities of fact-cheating nature that can't defend themselves and afford counters to the criminal insidiousness, the layers of criminal insidiousness associated with the breaching method, inseparable from treatments of the insurrection if proper, but they have not been proper. And this is relevant to where and how the campuses of each age and nature, including fire campuses, including medical campuses, they have a vertical and horizontal database organized crime method involved with themselves. They have remote uses of themselves. The people pretend trying to keep things for the country and for their family members. They're not doing that legitimately. This is a little rat trap set up since before cars were invented, before our founders were even born. They set up the rat trap torture method on top of slavery. They set up the rat trap with people pretending passions and emotions, and offensively preventing people from reporting sequence shifts, offensively pretending, passions and emotions, pretending people don't want to cooperate with the police for reasons they're making up and pretending to believe. The police, I don't even have to go in the police office, station offices. The people involved at my street with them also have been involved intercities. They recorded themselves involved with predicate acts, identity theft, fraud, slanders, and trying to pretend trying to pretend I know people, and trying to pretend to other by having them walk by me, things like that. Make confessions about serious things, like pretend, time, intercities. Further involved with the principal child abusers campus. Further involved with the campuses at Sandy Hook, Newtown. Further involved with names involved with that. further involved with courts involved with that, police forms involved with that. See, we have to be able to counter their roles, criminally foreign influenced, and the courts and prisons tied to them. There's a prison in Sandy Hook, Newtown, who was a recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with various natures of people associated with body dumping spots, including a body dumping spot of a killer, a serial killer, and his person also recorded having been involved with other natures of identity theft, fraud with them, medicines, drugs, crimes, physical delusions, forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded roles too. So we don't even know. I don't know if he killed them, but I know also that body dumping spots of the people, and the spot next to it was and is with those same courts and people involved with Sandy Hook and on off the campuses that trained them, like some of them, like Central Connecticut State University, is also being and having been involved with planting evidences of all kinds of natures, intercampuses. They did this at Trinity College with the same people involved with predicate acts on Central Connecticut State University. They have victims that were victims of child abuse by male and females associated with the where and how they have other countries associated with the Demoro family and their roles with identity thefts and frauds, wire crimes, mail crimes, falsified police reports roles, drugs and medicines crimes roles. People, I never had a class with Joe Demoro, never saw him on my one time I saw him on a grammar school campus. One time I saw him in middle school, on middle school campus. Never had anything to do with him, never saw him around the rest of the time on that campus there. They try to pretend other outside campuses all these ways. They're involved with planting evidences with courts. Now, these are people that have been even in with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and federal criminal code defendants of his and their family members and their lawyer, Robert Chevalier, and people associated with the locations next to him, like the Harry Beecher Stowe House, Mark Twain House, and the Connecticut State Capitol and buildings next to that. Also with Chet Casper, been involved with identity theft frauds. I never had a class with him in my life. Never had a verbal conversation in my life. They have people make verbal confessions about them. He non-verbally confessed, recorded, demonstrated, confirmed. There were people from my grammar school and him with a former Mayor Gold and an executive police forms families like an O'Brien family have roles with people with the intelligence community, with the buildings next to the state capitol, like with the clubs and things like that. And then with the police, they go and the different ones go to the clubs and they change the owners, and some of the owners that own the building and they have that involved with even the religious spots. They have the sense and sensibilities of the religious spots because they have from off the religious spots, from off the campuses, from collusion through other things, on and off the campuses, on and off the religious spots, including different religious spots and like Jewish community centers. And this is also when they were reporting internation people calling things into Jewish community centers. These are also people involved through administrations, like with people from Afghanistan, involved with this Joshua Stryker, with federal crimes, with the co-defendants, the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, since before they got caught for different like pension thefts and stuff like that, other natures of, or like uses of means to, like readings of statutes where they could lie about each other, where they left out exceptions. The FBI left out exceptions, increasingly valuing that having been FBI leaving out exceptions where they could use the right to lie. They've been roles with, and that's a lot of years they've been giving kids for pot. Now it's legal. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just saying it's a plant, and they're going to put a kid in jail or an adult. If they were doing it was an adult giving it to kids, it's different. And what they do too, they have the adults. They've controlled that. The same people, the adults that have been putting people away for stuff like that for years, they've been involved with that stuff. Even uses of the qualities of marijuana used to further criminal foreign influences with the people that are used with the offensive evidence, identity theft, fraud, slander method. Now that's relevant because that's the method. That's one of the things the method against everyone sickly non-distinctly was and is, because we want to not just discern how it is sickly distinctly hurting everyone. We want to discern simultaneously how it's sickly non-distinctly is hurting everyone, and we don't forget how sickly distinctly. New York is sickly distinctly a victim of this from every other place. Hartford, Connecticut is sickly distinctly a victim of this from Wethersfield. But there we are all victims of this non-distinctly. Each identity of the ground location, since before our founding parents were born, it was set up to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, while fake exceptions and fake exception nature were being engineered and already had been engineered to make exceptions where and how we are manifest as syntax nature, where and how we are manifest not just as function nature, as evolution nature, or as if forced from here. That's showing. In other words, we have agreements, but we have these agreements not being connected by the people wanting and needing unity for reasons different than we need it. The only unity that matters is the hyper-simultaneous unity, that inseparable from all parts of language, no matter what language you're speaking. These ancient languages have an identity that they are about simultaneously, the identity of hyper-simultaneous. That, again, distinct from, well, as the value of the individual, the group difference, and the species volume /S simultaneously. And that slash is only increasing value and volume as our own volume is, as its positive or negative relationship to itself, but per its system. So this system consciously made and maintains a certain type of victims, A through Z, as types of victims. But specifically, for example, the kids of New York City through time. Therefore, the adults of New York City are still victims of child abuses per a predicate acts delivery system method and a hyper predicate acts delivery system method, if you will, a breaching method, if you want. If you want to deny that there was a breaching method, and is a breaching method relevant to the causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and dangers in New York City, your defenses of your logic are going to show proofs of it. See, now people like that, and you, if you want to deny that, you have to pretend other. You have to value means to get away with pretending other, to keep this conversation, to keep the integrity of quality of fact human nature incapable of being and or incapable of defending itself because of what it colludes with. And as, for example, people don't care about strangers. So we need to have, and the ones who pretend, oh, well, I just need to be sensible. I want to talk online this way. They're trying to describe people's behavior. They don't even know. The people who are, in other words, pretending everyone should get along. They're offensively outside of courts and online lying about their motivations because because of their roles with their sources into branch, criminally foreign influence, kept with their worst patients and criminals, kept with that stupid nonsense, like with democracy, counters to the fake democracy narratives, natures. Everyone can discern. There's a difference between making negatives positive out of negative. That is criminal and seriousness, natures of positive, and making positive that is also positive onto itself. For example, saying, oh, okay, they already have the breaching method employed, all these crazy laws with colonization, and it's crazy parts with our slavery and the slavery of everyone sickly distinctly. So let's just try to make a positive out of it, and we'll join this industry over here, and we'll defend that, and we'll just be that role. That's making positive out of negative. Now, if you said, okay, look, there's a breaching method, it's causing negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. It's got people trying to make positives out of that as criminal and seditious natures, and is using the syntax of that, defending itself too, as collusion with illusion, as as collusion with the qualities of fact nature that are in collusion with the breaching methods, which measures and maintains anything of another nature, stepping forward, measures that nature stepped forward, still fake, a front, more screening of its own method in nature as criminal insidiousness, as hyper-criminal insidiousness, as there is discernible the needs to counter how wrongly countered since founding was and is the needs to counter natures of criminal insidiousness interstates distinctly from that international, and distinctly from that hyper international, which we have to discern as well, and making sure to discern how it is not just relevant to the phenomenon of where countries are and how countries are grouped, tactically ulterior from how we are grouped naturally. We are grouped towards and as other systems that are no longer native pure. So rather than make negative positive out of negative, we use how we look at the negative and the positive to reveal positive that is also going to be positive unto itself. In other words, we say, thank God, nature is going to demonstrate negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, because they put those crazy laws with colonization. And we make positives that are also positive unto itself, fact, tribute, nature oriented. We say, thank God, people were making positives out of negatives still as criminal natures, as tools that easily can be discerned. We don't keep making positive out of negative as a collusion, as criminal natures of positive treatments, sequence treatments, time treatments, simultaneously too fast, too slow. We have people making convictions and forcing, facts reception, measuring and maintaining that presidents are forced to keep their mouth shut. Where and how they agreed to keep their mouth shut, countries A through Z, but they left out exceptions, and they are leaving out exceptions, and they have left out exceptions per their roles further with the World Trade Center attack. People from Connecticut campuses. That Eric Oliveri, one time, I was shortly in a car with him, and he got out of the car. I didn't have any beer. I had nothing to do with them. I was in the car, and he got to have a beer across from one of the houses of one of the victims of the World Trade Center attack. I would do anything to have. I don't even know the guy. I would do anything. I loved him because not even know him because he was my T-ball coach. See, there are people. There are police forms that know how to make trouble between people and lock it in. Like the people that raised the DeMauro family, Joe DeMauro. He has a cousin, Joe DeMauro, also involved with people from Central Connecticut State University, intercities with these Joe DeMauros. and it has the one from my town has a John DeMarle. And they said Paul DeMarle, he confirmed over the phone. I only had one conversation in my life over the phone. In other words, they sought me out when I was in middle school. John DeMarle, he was like the older brother of one of the Joe DeMarles, who I only saw one time on campus. He was Mr. Pruzzi had me write a maze. Or he had a maze. Mr. Pruzzi told me to do his maze. So I did like in a second and backwards, and then just finished it. And he got all upset because he had some kind of narrative associated with him. I found out it was inconfessable, court demonstrated, confirmed, tied to some kind of racketeering of that nature, of that method, worse than war crimes, where everyone's in collusion with it. And they want you to tell on each other because they want to pretend personal things because they use the right to lie. They use criminally foreign influence readings of statutes. There were also Russian families and Korean families, Afghanistan families involved with the news. See, the news has all these stories and their treatments of it, also relevant to them making conspiracy theories with medical communities from these countries that share policing, that have forms that are doctors of mental health, that are still delusions wrought and criminally foreign influence fact treatment nature simultaneously, and with their patients and criminals and prisoners, like the people who attacked, kept needing to hide the same sequence shifts, finite active progressive lies together, physical delusions, identity theft, fraud, slander, method, roles. That's what the insurrection's about. Insurrection's about claiming where and how America has never won the revolution, where and how America has stayed being and having been employed. Identities of war nature, that multi-front for the breaching method, revolution against humanity that has been since semi-ancient times. Control the minds, vaccines, I'll teach you things, attend, Campus Marcius calls you home again. So former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, in 2006, district court in Connecticut, he had co-defendants of his, Thaddeus Grabowski, right before that part of a case /S, which is ongoing at the time of my father's death. Note, Thaddeus Grabowski made repeated threats and demonstrations to me. I didn't realize. I remember I got the sense of it was that, and I got it demonstrated that and how it was also tied to people involved with child abuses and identity thefts and frauds and slanders with police forms next to the building of Fox Connecticut News, which is where he made the confessions to me, which is right around the corner from the state capitol. There was also a Charlie Bowes. I never had a conversation with Charlie Bowes in my life, and there's a sister of his that was pretending to know me too. She's involved with people with federal crimes, with police, with police forms. They have been getting away with them because falsified police reports rules, identity theft, fraud, slander rules, sequence shift rules, as their roles with investigators, criminally foreign influence with them. So leading up to a 2006 district court case in Connecticut, also people on and off Central Connecticut State University and on and off Trinity College have roles with federal crimes on the campuses and identity thefts and frauds instances roles, sequence shifts roles, also with people on my street and people tied to them with the Wethersfield Police Department, also over the last months, switching names and with wire crime roles with them and with people tied to them since they were kids, involved with falsifying police reports, identity thefts and fraud slanders also in those contexts, and roles also with uses of elections crimes where they have the rights to lie with each other. They've been exploiting exceptions and focusing lie progressions, roles, needs, and natures, and uses of them at at campuses, timed instances where people are coming around corners and stuff like that, where they confess, demonstrate, record simultaneously, pretending other, but confess, demonstrate, record their roles with federal crimes of proving federal criminals before they even got caught. And they were involved also with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and all kinds of confessions regarding all kinds of natures of things from strangers, per the method of people lying about where others people were before that, where they're lying about the nature of relationships between all the kids, and that, and making up fake relationships between the kids more and more. And they're getting away with it because of how they have shared policing, and they have countries, foreign and domestic, shared here and there, and they're hiding behind that as the roles, as part of the identity theft, fraud, slander method /S roles, and needs and natures actually recorded. See, we have people that are valuing their roles as criminal insidiousness natures, having been legalized, criminally legalized. When they make opinions about what Jim Crow laws are about, this is manifest, rather than how they are a specific kind of a shock and awe nature, then cultivated, tricked, hurt, persuaded, forced, taken as all, not even realize, self-valuing. They realize too, to extent, well, as extents, in other words, needing to hide life aggressions. They are shock and awe, and made, that's where we have allies that they call allies. They don't have an event. They never had an identity liberated there. We never had one liberated here. And here and there, and where we need to counter, everyone's blaming other things, others, and or themselves wrongly, and they have done that, and they've been self-valuing roles with that, needs with that, natures with that, boxings. So I teach you things. The insurrection. See how when they're going up there and they want to give those people those long sentences. Think about that, locking someone in a jail, and those jails recorded involved with them at locations, fabricating evidences with their police forms and family members and neighbors and social with their cliques. There are people like there's a Subby Bajario, and there are other people from there are people from Central Connecticut State University that recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles of all these people with slanders, identity theft, fraud, slanders against me. Also as their roles with falsified police reports, as their roles with judges fabricating things into databases, speaking fake things in records, and with lawyers doing that. And painting arrays where there's fake sides, and there are commonly sequence shifting, painting with illusions associated with that, and with predicate acts of juxtaposed natures relevant on and off our campuses of each age and nature. CRT, they have the private lawyers, and they have the executive lawyers of the FBI involved, like the Robert Cheverie involved with the defense of former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, the former standing chairperson on the Racketeering, Influenced, and Corrupt Organization Act. And so there's a John LeConte and his neighbors recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, also involved in having been involved through time with people on and off Two Route Highway, where it runs into Hangdog Lane, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, falsified police reports, child abuses of mixed natures, and with the counters to it, in collusion with them. So we have our police forms. There's a medical family of Leahy family and a Lombardo family. And there are others I don't know the names of, involved with untimely deaths and drugs and medicines crimes with their patients and criminals, and with themselves and their family members and their friends and the people associated with the corners of the streets of their friends, involved with predicate acts on my street through time, from their positions to some of them. Excuse me. The Leahy family pretended conversations with me. I never had a conversation with the Brendan Leahys in my life, verbally. And they pretended whole conversations with me about my father's legal cases, and they pretended I said people were trying to surveil us with police equipment. I never said that to them or anybody else. They made up all these fake narratives And Dr. Shamsi Ali said, confessed over the phone to me, because he's one of the ones. 3 times they forced me for mental evaluation. 3 times those places are recorded, self-recorded themselves. That's why they had to attach me to fake conversations with themselves, as the people associated with what I caught them doing on my street, as people I were caught intercities involved leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context, involved with this. It has something to do with the corners and people and along Route Elm Street in Rocky Hill and Route 3. People all along Route 3 involved with federal crimes, with foreign families, and with psychology and psychiatry, and people with the badges with that, and with the readings of the law, with the judges in the courts, and various natures of courts, people on off the state judicial branch offices, involved with this Fianza family, also involved with the houses there and on off the 2-hour highway, with a whole bunch of people involved with identity theft, fraud, sequence shifts too. They all pretended to know me after they graduated because of whatever they got involved with Maria Fazzino too, and Mark Violet, involved with people on off the state judicial branch offices, and people with this Debbie Gold, daughter of a mayor, Gold, and their neighbors and stuff like that, like this Joseph Dennis, involved with drugs and medicines crimes, simultaneously physical delusions with investigators, and with people with the child abusers campus, involved identity theft, fraud, slanders with them, sequence shift, trying to set up fake exceptions and things like that. These are evidences planting predators. Also online, they attached me to fake emails, and they did that to force the child abuser. They did that to hide what I caught them doing, and worse, and also confessed over the answer machine messages. And there was no, it wasn't emails. So they changed that too. They have the news multi-front with the interbranch that forged and switched names and made confessions and prevented writing and pretended it was mistakes from the other branch. And they just put a charge with no writing. And then they have me go to they tell you, okay, we'll go to this program and speak to these people. I went there. They're involved with the place since I was a kid. And I just knew about that because of this too. Because everyone's speaking through others, criminally foreign influence. These people all with ties to those weird confessions and games that the executive and judicial and the political families. And I found out how the courts involved with them too. A whole bunch of people with the same last names. I don't even think they're the same families involved. They always switch. They have people with the same first names. They switch. They have men, male and females associated with the name Bobby, uses of the name Bobby, associated with the corner of Elm Street and Rocky Hill and Route 3 in Wethersfield. A whole bunch of people associated with the locations next to Central Connecticut State University, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with various natures of federal crimes, with people involved with identity thefts and frauds against me from my town, who pretended to know me through exceptions, like a Rick Faglione. I only know him in that context. That's only he sought me out to make confessions. It was demonstrated, confirmed by a little kid. I didn't respond because he was a little kid with a little blue baby blue suit, Kyle Gill. Then, as an adult, he recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, explained to it further to me. There are various natures of prosecutors and their family members, personally and professionally, criminally involved with him and his family members, associated also with the police forms and private police on off Central Connecticut State University since he was a kid, involved intercities with various natures of organized crime with men and women, with the interbranch and foreign and a whole bunch of other countries, and military, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, medicines crimes, drugs crimes roles, other sexual crime roles and methods tied to that, as people also involved with the policing of shopping centers in Newington and in Wethersfield and Rocky Hill, and uses of that, and their roles with this with a there's a I didn't know what they were, why they were pretending to know me as kids from behind. I never had a class with them. Um, um I knew they were hiding needs, I had lipoaggressions. I knew they had motivations that were apparent, but I knew they were juxtaposed with other. So we got brought up. There's a Delafair family I don't know who pretended to know me, and they sought me out to pretend to confessions. They made confessions about their roles with their father with a cigarette that would make fake phone calls, and they were involved with the probate court judge and their family. Probate court is associated with people when they do mental evaluations of people. They've been fabricating audio and video to hide what I caught them doing with their own families and people associated with those judges on my street 3 times. They recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed their roles with names associated with it. And further on and off the principal child abusers campus. And further on and off interbranch roles with that, and with the wire crimes with New Britain, Connecticut News, and with these extortion methods. These are also preventing me from having prevented me from completing my education, having prevented me from working, having prevented me from using boxing gyms and using you doing business, because these are also people involved with the people that brought up confessions relevant to the World Trade Center attack and to those games with that Eric Oliveri, and involved with the people I never had a conversation with at all, like a Joshua Stryker and the girl I don't know her name, involved at Trinity College, with also with methods with the courts criminally involved with her, police forms criminally involved with her, with real estate companies where they use investigators where they use the right to lie, where they didn't have the right to lie, involved with this, with the whole bunch of people from Central Connecticut State University, involved with all kind of sexual circles and stuff like that. I only know them through confessions regarding, which also were juxtaposed with confessions regarding their roles with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and relevant to their roles with needing to hide life progressions as people that needed to pretend they knew me in grammar school. I had nothing to do with them. You know what I'm saying? They're putting fake things in databases at each campus, sickly distinctly. They also had people that live next to the schools connected, involved with the identity thefts and frauds and slanders. Other people they involved with themselves with this, the interbranch, as the ones too with the overt criminal enterprises in private, themselves criminally kept needing to hide life progressions with them, and with the private tied to them. All exceptions and exception nature tied to the interbranch, like prisons. They have been fabricating audio and video. So they have male and female, foreign and domestic medical families associated with mental health, and with these lawyers and victims advocates pretending to be for women's rights, forcing people to types of rights where they're forcing collusion that way. They're painting arrays of narratives where they're all attaching everybody to sequential fake words. The same ones involved with that with NBC Connecticut News. These are CNN sources. They are involved with a story regarding on and off Paul Manafort Drive. There's a woman with the intelligence community in the background who, in one of their stories, for example, how they were directing and recorded and confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with their roles with the people that own the buildings next to Central Connecticut State University, involved also with the FBI and CIA, involved with the Scalora family, also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with the DeMarlos, with sexual and drug crimes when they were against girls from middle school, with the interbranch men and women involved with the medical community and the intelligence community and the drugs, medicines, crimes, where and how they have mental health. They're forcing drugs on patients and criminals, and they're forcing they're trying to do it with with physical delusions and as roles with their patients and criminals before they got caught, trying to force that not told on too. And I still can't get them onto paper. So there's a Dr. Graham with a whiting forensics place in Connecticut with state police. A whole bunch of state police families, retired and standing, associated with Joshua Julian, and the Facebook page of New Britain Superior Court and the Principal Child Abusers Campus. Also with the Facebook pages of Hartford Hospital with judges, and doctors involved with federal crimes, with of sexual natures and of drugs and medicines crimes natures, of mental and of logic natures, and with physical delusions simultaneously. So they need to get on paper because they've been fabricating things. They get people to get in their presence, and then they attach you to fake conversations with themselves when there wasn't even a word of conversation between us ever in life. And their friends and their family members have been pretending others since we were kids behind their backs. And they've been lying about their motivations too for it. Every instance they lie about and their influence to it. And they needed to pretend it's personal. They brought this up. Too. They're also pretend they don't understand what people mean, so they can pretend other passions and emotions that there's not means to, in 1 second, to discern their physical delusions and their criminally foreign influences as the actual causes of their passions, emotions, and narratives. They don't care about they don't care about the insurrection legitimately. They would care about the insurrection. You think New York is free? You think any suburb is free, let alone New York? In Russia, they have suburbs, just like in America, since before cars. The same rat trap with slavery and witch trials and way crazy things at the same time. Torture at the same time, additional to slavery. The identity theft, fraud, slander, additional to slavery. The tactical, pseudo-criminally foreign influence education, additional to slavery. All forms of it, and sustained. Uses of that, additional to that. Uses of what is manifest at locations that everyone missed. This knew it built pseudo sophistications that it knew would have to hurt and value hurt, having been hurt. Each age of correlation nature. This method knows and keeps effectively self-value, the interbranch, explaining and demonstrating, confessing through confessions and also in the form of statements to other kids, how their families are offensively, criminally foreign influenced, evidence reception, identity reception, sequence reception, predators, and pretending others simultaneously. That's all. If that sounds complicated, but that's what it is simultaneously when they bring up where and how that uses of color treatments in the law. It was for the syntax racketeering. It was for the complete possession over the sense and sensibilities of everyone, A through Z. It was for those arrays of opinions / convictions, A through Z, in collusion and against anyone who's going to make using inherent, active, and progressive means actually capable of being as a correlation nature and by sequence nature, by two identities of sequence / simultaneously nature further relevant with and as that, as value. As the cell nucleus, cell body, cell wall, they come with the identity of sequence nature that is gaining through. Gas is coming through as a sequence nature / simultaneous nature too, the right mixture. And as a sequence nature coming through the elements of Earth. So the physical plan is the cell body, the cells are 1 / 3 / 5 identities of sequence / simultaneous nature as the same one. Boxing is fun. So thank you guys for coming out to this day. Hear many pray. That's why no matter what country you guys are in, every country, A through Z, we're in a semi-ancient trap. All locations, areas, and states are criminally foreign influenced, but specifically, effectively, to keep and having kept to keep pseudo-sophistication as the only sophistication, only capable of blaming other things, others, and or themselves. Exactly the way the breaching method wanted to need, and then defending that. So defending offensively qualities of fact treatment nature, like opinions and convictions and sequence treatments, nature treatments, identity treatments, ground treatments, time treatments that can't be defended, that and to be a nature capable of countering those natures of criminal insidiousness, nature bound by that nature that is hurting each country A through Z, sickly, distinctly. So rather than make a negative out of a positive, for example, there are grouped countries with nuclear bombs pointed at each other. That's negative. But we can make that negative into a positive that is also positive unto itself, rather than just make it into a positive. Criminal insidiousness nature of a positive. And we can get them to agree to it and love it. The whole species agrees that we want to combat you guys as a game. We'll give you, we'll take a new industry out of nowhere. And you know, executive actions, other countries, forms of it, to make things free, better than free, our means. Since before cars, the pathology of infrastructure, only that could be fathomed, is where, you know, is that by that trap designed, that trap that had those crazy laws against what anyone could say. So everyone had to stay manifest, saying other and only keeping their mouth shut or speaking with their sense, and people individually, sickly, distinctly, to keep it all groups still. There can be no unity capable originally and still. The only way that unity can be realized here or there as anything worth anything is going by that unity. That is the species identity, body of volume, and where and how it wants and needs. The individual body in sequence first, but caring for that system simultaneously. Same way, last second compiling. I don't know if I believe I have that used to refer to JavaScript too, but I believe it's per Python. Like last second compiling, at the last second, they're doing things out of sequence. They have to be in the one sequence towards our perception, the perception of the viewer, but towards the logic of and the background, they have to do certain things before they could do that sequence. Or for example, the computers have to do things for their sequence first. And then we have that fake continuous reality up here. And or wow, that is its own sequence nature. Forget that, because the computers have to follow this method. Computers can only make positive out of negative. Unless we use fact treatment nature and mandated law outside of courts. Then we treat an insurrection. We don't bring up the term insurrection inseparable. It is inseparable from what slavery was about. It was inseparable from what witch trials are about simultaneously. It is inseparable from that breaching method. It is inseparable from that breaching method that was pretending morality anyway. How they were getting away with it. How they are getting away with it. See, they are pretending our audience to perceive things about our audience and ourselves by measuring, for example, we're studying though, but they call it studying. how our interactions are with other people. They're leaving out what is said. They're leaving out what is when people speak about particular predicate acts and sequence shifts and federal crimes with evidences. They leave that out from their narratives when they're regarding how they take people online. Their narratives regarding people quitting the town councils and parent teachers organization. This is part of the interbranch forcing people to speak through others, where they've been fabricating audio and video and putting narratives, pretending people tied to others, fake natures of ties to others, and sequence shifts. How they get whole groups need to value sequence shifts because everyone's speaking to others. That's why how they lock, the positions of the intelligence community and their communications with other people, criminally foreign influence, delusions raw. That's why I minded my business and only, you know, people make. That's how people seek you out, and they have connections between each other through time. People who make statements and confessions to you as strangers from the youngest ages. These are people. These are bad people with our campuses, and these are bad people that have been used self-valuing roles with that since they were kids. The people speaking for the insurrection. You don't bring up an insurrection without bringing up slavery. You don't bring up they bring up slavery and they blame it on our founding parents and they pretend that's the only evidence. They pretend that's the evidence recorded. That's the evidence they were forced to pretend it was recorded. While they're doing that, they're measuring and maintaining our own sickly distinctly from the breaching method, that and how we're not using the evidence our founders gave us to explain and understand how they didn't have free speech, how they had to hide their roles, setting up the revolution, counter-extorted. Excuse me. Roles forced with slavery sickly distinctly in the North and South, forced to fight with each other as the North and South. Instead, they pretended the South was about slavery only, and they hid the North and roles with it, and they made it self-value through all these natures and narratives. Well, this is how you have to teach it because the kids, they can't appreciate it. Same ones are in the background with their kids, confess and demonstrate recording how they're criminally foreign influenced. New York is designed to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. The suburbs are designed to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, let alone New York City. Nothing grows. But it rose one way. It may pray. Vaccine. See, we want to use our species volume. We want to use unity, and we won't be charged for it. We want it like this. You want to help New York, and we'll do it like that. We have the spaces. We have the will. We have the people that they really think about us, our real audience. We have some little fakes online too, on a mass scale against everyone because they have other motivations, nature, needs, and interests, offensively defend their roles with their fact treatments, positive and negative treatments already insidious, and collusion, already identity treatments, name treatments already insidious in real life. They already styles manifest by nature as criminal and insidious natures incapable of defending themselves and affording anyone to protract unobstructed the short words, like regarding the sequence shifts and the predicate acts with the news and uses of them and their sources, including the interbranch sources of CNN and Fox News and MSNBC. You think it's a joke? You think it's a joke? These parties are that stupid? They're sick, fake sides. And they're commonly preventing the solutions, which is having the mandated law and quality of fact treatment nature by correlation nature's actually inherent active progressive means at locations. Doesn't matter see, they're pretending that's the democracy. We're just evil, sick, and it's the other side's fault. Get out of here. Follow mandated law. Fix the fake news. Get out of the election locations, town offices. You got town offices involved with juxtaposed natures of abuses of each age of fact treatment nature simultaneously. Uses of fact, those people's neighbors and family ages of their family members, intercampuses through time, uses of it. This is through time perfected needs for it, scattered everyone. Preaching method. So people, thank you. And don't forget, when you hear about the January 6th, tomorrow, today, every day, when you hear the NBC, MSNBC, Fox News, CNN, it's nothing personal about them. They start to, they sequence shift. They will not fix the fake news. They have their Facebook pages and the stewards of their police forms interbranch and retired and the ones interbranch their sources and the military, all exceptions tied to them. They also share prison databases, people off the state judicial branch office, people off the state prison offices, people that train those prisons like criminal justice, this department, even the people that work on the campuses, recorded in collusion, especially how along Route 3 through time, especially like with a Mr. Neville involved. There's something to do with Mr. Neville also with this, with the intelligence community along Route 3, and people with this Mr. Abruzzi involved with Central Connecticut State University and Trinity College with predicate acts, identity thefts, and frauds that are also having been involved with predicate acts when I was a kid that I recorded them involved with. The former director of the FBI, his co-defendants, and people I didn't know the names of. I didn't know at the time that, or I would have been able to tell on that and show it to the people that were suing him and sued them effectively regarding their roles with pension thefts and stuff like that. Was involved. Those were people involved with other natures of federal crimes on my campuses, identity thefts and frauds. All kinds of. They use the confessions from the girls and boys speaking time to when people come around corners, and there's connections to people who do that. It's an identity theft fraud method that stacks amount of names to pretend that means something. And they'll all tell you this, but you have to ask them correctly. Otherwise, they're having been coached by the interbranch and exceptions that tied to them, who are also themselves in the branches distinctly and non-distinctly, but criminally foreign influence differentially, but increasingly. And that is used remotely increasingly. It was, with the whole time it has been. So since I was a kid and since everyone was a kid, they've been typing fake things in databases about everybody. That's all. There's a way more relevant. It's recorded how they're kept needing to hide the same sequence, just fine progressive lies, the styles of it relevant to nature, as criminal and ceaseless natures are like mass wrongdoer styles of logic, mass identity theft fraud style. They even want and need themselves to they switch to appear to have unnatural things because they're planting roles of evidences that way. Their whole family's stuck with lie progressions, a whole bunch of ways. It gets bad things because we have some bad interbranch, sick, fake nature of integrities with like mental health. The most important thing we have to fix the physical delusions, the criminally foreign influence natures and methods of the various natures of courts and people on off the state judicial branch offices involved with the identity thefts and frauds and uses of them with the intercampuses through time, planting evidences roles. And with other countries, I'll show you how they're kept motivated through juxtaposed motivations too, to screen the motivations of the breaching method. Even if it's no longer existent, we could save our nations by blaming it and by enabling our species volume science to speak what it really wants without having to worry about or even, or think about how to think what's unfathomable. Well, we shouldn't have to continue to think what is unfathomable only because all that has been shown to us was designed only capable of being that which is showing us that New York City, for example, is unfathomably stuck that way. Space means comes out of nowhere once we're on the same plan, we're on the same page like this, we're playing like a game. Evolution science only feels like games. We can put people into a circuit and we make space locations better than any of them are in now, and make them come and go through the different parts. And then if it doesn't work out, no one would be stuck anywhere. So it'd be a circuit. Everyone will keep moving. If everyone doesn't, and people don't want to do that, it would still take away all the people stacked on each other, and we'll keep out measured out. That doesn't get filled in by insidiousness, and or if it gets filled in because there's just too many people, at once. We simultaneously do this interstates, and we do this as a species, knowing that we're not going to mess we're wars and things that lead up to them, things that are keeping us not just the status quo, way worse, keeping us this trap. Countries A through Z, let's rap as one, the species body. Fun. We could agree. You guys, we just blame the trap. You guys you have to allow us to be a quality of fact human nature that can admit, let alone be a quality of fact human that's going to overcome the juxtaposed natures of wrongdoers, of criminal and seditious natures. Originally, still, they were blaming other things other than themselves wrongly. They were countering predicate acts wrongly as predicate acts, delivery system, tools, roles, screening that though pretending for other motivations, natures, even when they're telling the truth at the same time too. Well, that's my job. I was trained. This person committed a crime. Started before those. These kids have been in a trap. Intercampuses of each age and nature connected. Died. Each one has lied. So watch when people say success. Watch yourselves too when you're speaking about success. Think about that. Success. Think about New York City. Think about that rat trap that has been blaming our founders for slavery in our faces, overtly / insidiously. Think about that. Think about how it hasn't been countered. Think about the narratives behind it. Think about what was entrenched. Think about it. Think about that insurrection method. Think about that sick, fake integrity of counter to it. Offensive, that quality of fact human nature can't defend itself. It's needing to hide the same lie progressions with that fool with the horns on his head, which might be undercover. You don't even know, because they have these undercover police involved with the police forms with these narratives, or they're either for the police or the criminals. They were recorded originally and still whole crime methods together, not just acts. And like, for example, the news media, multi-front, not just interbranch, not just at locations. Evidence reception racketeering, data reception racketeering, evidence reception racketeering, worse than war crimes. What is slavery about? Let's get her done. Let's show. You guys still blaming other things, other self, still effectively breaching method employed. In fact, human nature oriented. You don't have legal representation. Pantheism comes. See native drums come too. See president / chief. See how they're a cipher that we can't decipher, because you guys aren't letting American history told. You guys are trying to name stack. You guys are trying to culture rob by forcing physical delusions in your physical cultures too, in ways that are preventing the what they're trying to preserve from being revealed and demonstrated, including religions. You guys won't let the first part of the sequence shift. You won't let the first part of the Quran, or the first part of the Old Testament spoken about even. And even they won't even spoke about. And says all you have to do is understand is right up to here. And what do you hide that? Put a whole New Testament to hide it. Prevent it. You guys are natures of sequence shifting styles. You guys are natures of criminal assistants, child abusers, in collusion with the people countering you, child abusers. sick fakes. Make sure they get on paper and say sorry to the Fox News judges, too, the people involved with the FBI and the directors, still speaking, still pretending to have integrity, still relying upon sick fakes and mass grouped that reactions that they can't handle the truth because you guys are involved with abuses of them since they were kids. They don't know how to think, and you guys are constantly needing to lie about other people based on your narratives, like with the with how and why people are calling schools. You guys are replacing what's actually recorded over the phones rolls with fabricated audio and video, hiding and forcing abuses of children of juxtaposed natures. Same families involved with juxtaposed abuses of elderly homes. You get on paper now with the interbranch. Bow, fake branches fall, build wall. Vaccines. I'll teach you things in loan. The species trade, the body gain. The species body will gain Santa's gifts one way alone. Vaccine. You know.